What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another FPL Transfer Talks video. And today we're going to be talking about Game Week 11, and we're going to start things off by discussing whether you should be selling Erling Haaland or not ahead of Game Week 11. It is one of the biggest talking points right now within the FPL community, and I'm sort of just going to give my thoughts and feelings on this situation and whether I believe you should be selling Erling Haaland for Game Week 11. Now, with that being said, guys, as you all know, Erling Haaland has been pretty damn poor in the last month or so. The last 5 game weeks, he's been stinking up everyone's teams week in, week out, right? He's got one goal in 5 games, right? Absolutely horrible for a man that is so expensive. Absolutely shocking for a man that costs 15.3 million at the time of recording, right? That is just simply not good enough. You cannot be that expensive and only be getting 1 goal in 5 Premier League games with those good fixtures as well. It's just simply unacceptable. So I do understand why everyone does sort of want to be selling Erling Haaland. And look, I'm split in 2 minds, to be honest with you guys. One side of me is saying I think you should definitely sell Erling Haaland. Another half of me is saying I do think there is a case to keep Erling Haaland. Now, look, I'm gonna tell you guys my opinion, and I'm gonna tell you guys sort of my argument. My argument for selling Erling Haaland, right? I'm going to tell you guys why I think you should sell Erling Haaland. Then I'm going to say why I think you should keep him. But with that being said, let's start with obviously why I think you should sell Erling Haaland. Now, first things first, the fixtures, right? The fixtures on paper are not great. Brighton away is not bad, but after that is Spurs at home, Liverpool away, Nottingham Forest at home, Palace away, Man United, and then Aston Villa. I do feel like from game week 11 to game week 17, this is not the best fixture run. It really isn't the best fixture run, especially when you consider Erling Haaland's form and the price tag he is at. But the thing for me is, it's not necessarily just about Erling Haaland having bad fixtures. It's that whilst Erling Haaland has sort of these tougher fixtures, you've got other players with really, really good fixtures, like other quality players, like a Cole Palmer, for example, who from game week 12 has an amazing fixture run, right? So if you don't have Cole Palmer in your team, to maybe fund a move to Cole Palmer, you could be selling Erling Haaland, buying Cole Palmer for 11 million, and then have another 4 million to spend. And when you put it like that, it just seems a lot more worth it. You could also be going to someone like Bukayo Saka, for example, who's 10 million, right? Again, Bukayo Saka has a great fixture run from game week 12 onwards. Again, whilst Erling Haaland has a difficult fixture run, you've got a player like Bukayo Saka, who we know is a good FPL asset with really, really good fixtures. So it's the fact that Erling Haaland has sort of this difficult fixture run, whilst other premium assets have a really, really good fixture run as well. You know, someone like Mohamed Salah as well, he's got some pretty good fixtures, and again, is much cheaper than Erling Haaland. You can buy Salah and then have an extra 2 million to spend. And what I like about it, what I like about selling Erling Haaland is that you're moving to other premium assets, and then you're able to free up some money and spend it in other positions. So that's what I really, really do like about Erling Haaland. And a lot of people are sort of looking to work towards a premium midfielder structure of, you know, Mohamed Salah, Cole Palmer, and Bukayo Saka. And obviously selling someone like Erling Haaland does allow you to do that. And in terms of captaincy as well, you got to ask yourself, would you even be looking to captain Erling Haaland if you owned him during this run? Maybe against Brighton, but maybe not against Spurs, because, you know, in game week 12, you've got Salah against Southampton, you've got Palmer against Leicester. You know, in game week 13 against Liverpool, you're obviously not going to want to captain Erling Haaland. In game week 14 against Forest at home, they've been pretty solid defensively. There's an argument in there not to captain someone like Erling Haaland. So you look at these games and you got to ask yourself, you know, how many times are you thinking about actually putting the captain's armband on Erling Haaland? And the answer probably is not many times at all, which is again another reason, in my opinion, why you could definitely consider selling Erling Haaland. I also do think there's some other good mid-price strikers like Alexander Isak with good fixtures. You know, he's got West Ham in game week 12, Palace away in game week 13. After the Liverpool game, it's Brentford, Leicester, and Ipswich. Again, some really, really nice fixtures. And you've also got someone like Ollie Watkins as well. You know, after the Liverpool game in game week 11, he's got some really, really nice fixtures, playing against Palace at home, Brentford at home, Southampton at home. So these are players that you could be looking to get, man. But I just like sort of that you're able to sort of invest more money in your whole team, right? Your whole team structure and your whole team sort of improves. You can maybe get like a Gavardia, a Trent if you want a Trent. You can double up on maybe Liverpool or Arsenal defenders. But not only can you go to other good premium options, you can also free up some money and invest it in your bench, right? You could also go from, like, you know, you can upgrade your fifth midfielder, for example. You could upgrade, like in my case, I've got Tyler Dibbling. If I sold Erling Haaland, I could easily get to, let's just say, for example, I could, you know, get to a Cole Palmer and then maybe an Ollie Watkins, right? Or an Alexander Isak. But I can do that easily, and then I've got a full 5 playing midfielder and then obviously a good front 3 as well. So it just definitely allows you to do a lot more with your team, create good rotations with your midfielders and defenders as well. So there definitely is a case to sell Erling Haaland for sure, right? There definitely is a case to sell Erling Haaland, in my opinion. So that is sort of my reasoning as to why I think you should consider selling Erling Haaland. However, as you guys know, I said I'm split in 2 minds, and I also do have a case for not selling Erling Haaland, and I'll tell you why. And it all sort of depends on your situation, right? Everyone's in different situations. Everyone's team setup and team shape and team structure is completely different. Now, if you're in a situation where you've only got sort of 1 free transfer, let's say, then I actually don't think it's worth selling Erling Haaland now. I'll be honest, because one of the main positives with selling an Erling Haaland is that you free up some funds and you can sort of improve the rest of your team, right? You can redistribute and reinvest that money in other positions in your team. But if you've only got 1 free transfer, you simply cannot do that unless you're willing to take a hit. And if I'm honest, I don't think it's worth taking a hit to sell Erling Haaland, right? So if you're in a situation where you're not really flexible because you've not got a lot of free transfers, then I don't think you're actually sort of maximizing the gain by selling Erling Haaland, right? So I only think it's worth selling Erling Haaland if you're someone that's maybe got 2, 3, 4 transfers, preferably 3 or 4, to truly maximize sort of, you know, the gain by selling Erling Haaland, right? Because selling Erling Haaland, of course, allows you to improve the rest and sort of your whole team structure, right? But if you're not able to do that because you've not got a lot of free transfers, I don't think it's worth it. So that's one of my reasons as to why I wouldn't sell Erling Haaland. Again, because look, I'm someone who's only got 1 free transfer, right? So I'm probably not going to be selling Erling Haaland anytime soon. And I also feel like I've got other fires to put out with my team. So that's why I don't think I will be selling Erling Haaland, because I'm not in a position where I'm flexible with my transfers. I'm not in a position where I can take out Erling Haaland and change 3 or 4 players. But if you're in a position where you can do that, that's when I think it's worth it. And look, one more thing I want to say as well, which isn't really like, it's not really, I guess, I don't know if you could say it's a logical reason, right, as to why you shouldn't sell Erling Haaland, but it's just something I was thinking about today. And look, 1 goal in 5 games, right? Absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. 1 goal in 5 games. Terrible. But Erling Haaland is Erling Haaland. So I just don't know if this form continues. Like, as I said, 1 goal in 5 Premier League games is absolutely shocking. And we know how good Erling Haaland is, right? We know he's a bona fide world-class elite striker. We know he's someone that loves to score goals. And I just don't know if this form continues, even though the next sort of 5 games aren't really ideal. Knowing how Erling Haaland is as a person, knowing how much he works hard and how much he wants to score goals and how hungry he is to score goals, I just don't believe this bad form continues, because Erling Haaland is a world-class player for a reason, right? We name these world-class players, we give these players the world-class label because they perform on a consistent basis, right? So if Haaland is that world-class elite striker, I do believe, yes, he can go through a dip in form, but at some point he's got to turn it around. And I just don't believe for the next 5 games he continues this terrible form, and maybe he only gets then, it turns from 1 goal in 5 games to about 3 goals in 10 games. I don't believe it stays that bad. So I do believe Erling Haaland as a minimum scores about 6 to 7 goals in the next 5 games, man. I wouldn't be surprised if he scores 2 goals against Brighton, 2 goals against Spurs. Maybe he blanks against Liverpool and doesn't score, but then he scores 1 against Forest and then 2 against Palace. I wouldn't be surprised, because I just feel like that's sort of, it swings and roundabouts with FPL, man. Players go through dips in form, but then they also go back in form. And I feel like that's what's going to happen with Erling Haaland. I feel like a lot of people could end up selling Haaland, and even with these fixtures, he's just going to score plenty of goals like he did at the start of the season. So look, it's definitely a tough one. There is definitely arguments for and against, but I don't want to go on too long just talking about Erling Haaland. I've probably waffled for far too long. But yeah, as I say, guys, look, I'm no expert. You guys can make your own decisions. I'm just a guy that loves to talk about FPL. So yeah, man, let me know your thoughts on Erling Haaland down below in the comments, and let's move on to the next player. Alright guys, so I wanted to talk to you guys about the Manchester United assets, and more specifically Bruno Fernandes, Rasmus Hojlund and Diogo Dalot. first things first, I really do think the Man United players should be targeted because the fixtures coming up are just so good. Starting off in Game Week 11 with Leicester at home, Ipswich away, and then Everton at home in Game Week 13. These three fixtures are absolutely amazing, and I just think, look, we've seen how poor defensively Leicester are, right? So to have them at home is a great fixture, and I can see Manchester United racking up the goals. I know it was Leicester's sort of B team, you could say, that played against Manchester United in the Carabao Cup, but we saw, right? We saw Man United score 5 goals in that game, and I think we could see a repeat of that in the Premier League fixture. And Ipswich as well, again, being one of the worst defences in the Premier League. So these two games from an attacking standpoint are really good for the likes of Rasmus Haaland and Bruno Fernandes. And then Everton at home is slightly tougher than these two games, but nonetheless, I still do think it's a really good fixture on paper, and actually not even just for the short term, but for the long term. I really do think the Manchester United assets could be a solid shout, right, to buy for Game Week 11, because I just think once you buy these Manchester United players, you can really hold them for the long term, because as you guys can see, we really do have a pretty decent fixture on. So yeah, I really am a big fan of the Manchester United players, because first things first, as I said, I do think the fixtures are really good. But with that being said, right, I think I like Haaland because at the moment, right, Ruud has shown that Rasmus Haaland is his preferred striker. So I do expect Rasmus Haaland to start against Leicester. Obviously, with Ruben Amorim coming in for Game Week 12 against Ipswich, things could change. You know, Haaland could get dropped. Amorim might prefer someone like Xerxes. I don't know, but I would still expect, just because Rasmus has been playing recently, I would still expect him to start even when Amorim takes charge, right, and manages the team. But I do like Haaland because, like I said, from an attacking standpoint, I can see in the next 3 games more specifically, Manchester United scoring quite a few goals. And look, I love Bruno Fernandes because I just think you know what you're getting with Bruno Fernandes, and recently he has been creating chances. Recently he has been getting into goal scoring opportunities, and he looks like the one to be sort of involved in the play when Manchester United score, right? He seems to be the one that's either going to get the assist or the goal right now. You know, he scored against Chelsea, albeit it was a penalty, but against West Ham he created a lot of chances, and he got into some decent goal scoring positions as well. And even against Chelsea he scored, but he could have had some assists to Garnacho as well, who missed some chances. So I think in recent weeks Bruno Fernandes has been looking like a pretty decent FPL asset, and with these fixtures coming up, I don't mind it at all. And also, you know what you're getting in terms of minutes. You know, he's guaranteed to get 90 minutes, he's guaranteed to start, and he's on penalties as well. So I really am sort of a big fan of Bruno Fernandes, especially from, you know, Game Week 11, 12 and 13. I just think those 3 fixtures, man, are so good. So yeah, I really do like him. And look, regardless of who the manager is, whether it's Ruud or Ruben Amorim, I think Bruno Fernandes will be in that starting 11, right? So I do like him a lot. Now, look, Diogo Dalot as well is another player that I really do like, because I just think, look, from a clean sheet standpoint as well, right? We don't know what sort of formation and what system Ruben Amorim will implement when he comes into the side. But even if, let's say, because typically at Sporting, Amorim would play a wing-back system, right? He would play a 3 or 5 at the back, however you want to say it. But the point is, he does play with wing-backs. So, look, we don't know if he's going to keep up that same system and play a 5 or 3 at the back and play with wing-backs. Once he joins Manchester United, you know, he might revert to a 4 at the back. We don't know. But nonetheless, whether Dalot plays as a wing-back or a full-back in a 4 at the back system, I do like him as an option, because I think just from a clean sheet standpoint, forgetting about attacking returns for a second, just from a clean sheet standpoint, I really do like these fixtures, and I actually could see us picking up some clean sheets in a lot of these games. Like Leicester at home could be a clean sheet game, Ipswich away could be a clean sheet game, and so could Everton at home as well. And then after Everton, of course Arsenal is tough, but then Nottingham Forest at home could definitely be a clean sheet game. Bournemouth at home could be. We have some pretty good home games, you know. And look, of course, Bournemouth have players that can score goals, like a Semenyo, like Ivan Nilsson. Wolves have players that can also score goals, like Cunha, Strand, Larsen. So do Newcastle. But at the end of the day, on paper, especially with some of these games being at home, I do kind of like them. And of course, the new manager bounce should never be ignored. Should never be ignored, man. New manager bounce is definitely a real thing, and I feel like Manchester United could have that with Ruben Amorim, which is another reason why I do like their assets as well. So look, I do like Dalot. I actually think he's a good long-term hold, especially if you can sort of rotate him in and out of your team. I do like Dalot as an option, and of course he's even better if Amorim does decide to implement that same system he did at Sporting and play a and play a wing back system, right? So if he does implement that wing back system and Dalot operates as a right wing back or left wing back, I like him as an option because he's got that license to go forward. So I do think, you know, Dalot could be a pretty solid option because, again, if that system is implemented, he's got the clean sheet potential, but also the attack and return potential. So, look, overall, I really do like Dalot. I do like Bruno, and I do like Rasmus Haaland. I think all three players could do really, really well in the next few game weeks. So, yeah, that is my opinion on the Manchester United players. All right, so I also wanted to talk to you guys about Strand Larsen versus Matheus Cunha. Who should you go for out of these two players? And it is very, very tight, and I'm going to give you guys my opinion on that right now. So, look, for me, this is what you should expect, right? I just want to make one thing clear. I want to let you guys know what I think you should expect from each asset, right? From Matheus Cunha, you should expect him to have, I'd say, more goals and assists overall, right? Because Matheus Cunha does have that goal threat, but he also does have that assist threat, right? Because he is a creative player, and when you watch Wolves, he's just always involved in the attacking build-up, in the attacking play, and is always creating chances, but also getting into good goal-scoring positions. However, Strand Larsen's game is more based on just scoring goals. So Strand Larsen does have very, very good goal threat, but his assist threat is very, very low, especially when you compare it to someone like Matheus Cunha. So I would expect Matheus Cunha to have more goal involvements combined, more goals and assists combined than Strand Larsen. But I guess the question is by how much? Because I don't actually believe it's worth paying the extra million, right, to go for Matheus Cunha instead of Strand Larsen. Although Matheus Cunha does have that sort of assist threat as well as having that goal threat, and although Matheus Cunha is very, very good for that bonus point system as well, I don't know if it's worth paying for an extra, like spending an extra 1 million on Cunha. I actually feel like at 5.6, you know, Strand Larsen is 5.6, Cunha is 6.6. I do think at 5.6 million, I do think Larsen could be better value, because the question is, guys, the question is as well, if you don't spend that 1 million on Matheus Cunha and instead you go for Strand Larsen, what will you do with the extra 1 million that you get, right? What does that extra 1 million allow you to do with your team? And I think that is the question that you have to ask yourself, really, right? Because in my case, I could have gone for someone like Matheus Cunha, but I went for Strand Larsen, and I'll tell you why, right? I'll tell you why I went for Strand Larsen, because look, as you guys can see, I've got Strand Larsen in my team, right? And I went for Strand Larsen as opposed to Matheus Cunha because it allows me to free up money and of course upgrade my fifth midfielder. As you can see, I've got Dibbling, but I wanted to get another midfielder in and upgrade that position, and it allowed me to go and get someone like Morgan. It's going to allow me to get Morgan Rogers back in my team as a fifth midfielder, right? So that's why in my case, I believe going for Strand Larsen was worth it, because it was a case of having Cunha and Tyler Dibbling, or Strand Larsen and a Morgan Rogers. And I love that Strand Larsen and Rogers option a lot more, because having 5 playing midfielders is going to be very, very valuable, especially as we enter the Christmas period. So I asked myself that question, and that was my answer to the question. So I feel like you have to do the same for your team. You have to analyze your team and sort of say, well, where am I going to put this extra 1 million? Are you going to invest it in another defender? Are you going to invest it in another midfielder? I don't know. But ultimately, I will say I don't believe Matheus Cunha is worth... I don't think he's 1 million more better than Strand Larsen, if you get what I'm trying to say. I don't think it's worth paying the extra money to go for Cunha as opposed to Strand Larsen. So yeah, and if you want to compare the stats so far this season, you've got Strand Larsen with 4.3 points per match as opposed to Cunha with 4.7 points per match. There's not a big difference there. And remember, guys, Cunha is 1 million more expensive than Larsen, and as I said, 1 million can go a long way. When you compare the goals, they're equal on goals and assists, guys. Both players have 4 goals, both players have 1 assist. When you look at the expected goals per 90, so we're looking at the underlying data right now, expected goals per 90, you can see Strand Larsen, he's got 0.27 expected goals per 90 as opposed to Cunha's 0.26 expected goals per 90. So again, it's very, very close. But then this is the difference, and this is where I believe you're paying the extra million for, is the expected assist and I guess sort of the potential of goal involvement here with Cunha. Because as you can see, when you compare the expected assists, you can see Strand Larsen's got 0.05 expected assists, whereas Matheus Cunha does have 0.21 expected assists, right? So that's what I'm talking about, and that sort of shows that Matheus Cunha is more involved in the attacking play with Wolves, and it again is something I've noticed when watching Wolves play. So do you think it's worth paying the extra money when you're realistically just paying for maybe a few more assists. I'm not sure, but again, it's all up to you guys. It's all dependent on your team and whether you think it's worth it. But yeah, look, for me personally, I think Strand Larsen is just such good value at his price point. He's such good value, right? And his goal potential is really, really good. So yeah, for me, I do prefer Strand Larsen, but I equally do think Cunha, and I'm saying I prefer Strand Larsen with price being a factor. If price wasn't a factor, then I think I would most definitely be going for someone like Matheus Cunha. But with price being a factor, I do prefer Strand Larsen. That is my personal opinion. Alright guys, so I quickly wanted to talk to you guys about Luis Diaz and possible replacements if you are looking to sell. Because I'm not going to lie, a lot of people have sold Luis Diaz already. And as you can see, around 158,000 people have sold Diaz. So if you're one of those people with Luis Diaz in your FPL team and you're looking to sell him and you're looking for a replacement, well, these would be my preferred options. As you guys can see, we've got Bruno Fernandes, Anthony Gordon, Brennan Johnson, and Matoma. Now, of course, I already spoke about Bruno Fernandes. You guys know that I really, really do like the fixtures that Manchester United have. And Bruno Fernandes, of course, being the man that is guaranteed to start, guaranteed to get 90 minutes on penalties. And, you know, one of Manchester United's, if not Manchester United's best creative outlet, right? So that's why I do like Bruno Fernandes. Now, I want to speak a bit more about Anthony Gordon, because I really, really do like him. And again, just off watching Newcastle, every time I watch Newcastle, Anthony Gordon is the one player that looks like, you know, he's either going to create something or score, right? He is right now looking like Newcastle's best attacking player. And I think the fixtures coming up are actually pretty decent. Of course, Nottingham Forest away from home is definitely tough, right? Nottingham Forest have been solid defensively this season, but after that, West Ham at home, they've been shocking. Crystal Palace have been shocking. Liverpool's tough, but then Brentford, Leicester, and Ipswich is really, really nice. So over the span of like 6 to 7 game weeks, I really, really do like Anthony Gordon, because like I said, every time I watch Newcastle, he's the one player that looks like, you know, is going to create something or score a goal, right? He's absolutely amazing on the eye test. So that's why I really, really do like Anthony Gordon. And his underlying data isn't too bad as well. You're like, he's got 0.59 expected goal involvement per 90, which is really, really solid. So yeah, with those fixtures coming up for Anthony Gordon, I really, really do like him as an option. Now, another player I really, really do like is Brennan Johnson. Brennan Johnson with Spurs, you know, he's having a really, really good season this season. He's scoring a lot of goals. He scored in the last game against Aston Villa, and I think this is a good entry point for someone like Brennan Johnson, because his next game is against Ipswich at home. And as I said, Ipswich have been one of the worst defensive teams so far this Premier League season. So there is a lot of goals in that game for Spurs. And also, Spurs at home this season have been absolutely fantastic, right? I think they've lost only one home game so far this season, and that was against Arsenal. So they've performed and scored a lot of goals at home. Yeah, I mean, look, as you guys can see here, let me just show you guys, right? So at home against Everton, right? 4 goals scored. They won 4-0. Of course, as I said, they lost against Arsenal, but then after that, they beat Brentford 3-1. And then they beat West Ham at home 4-1, and they beat Villa at home 4-1. So you can see here, a lot of wins at home and a lot of goals scored at home. So their home record is really, really good this season. They're playing Ipswich at home. Of course, City away is tough, but honestly, there's goals in that game for Spurs, man. City are weak at the back. They are weak at the back, and they're conceding goals at the moment. And, you know, Spurs on the transition, I think this is the kind of game where Spurs can really hurt City, right? Because Spurs on transition, they have the players to hurt City. They've got Son, they've got Brendan Johnson, and I can just imagine sort of Solanke sort of dropping a little bit deeper in a game like this, and the 2 wide players for Spurs getting in behind and basically, you know, Maddison, whoever plays in the 10, wherever it's Kulusevski, Maddison, one of those 2 players putting those threaded through balls, penetrating breaking the lines and putting those penetrating passes through to the wide players to basically just catch Spurs, to catch Man City on the transition. I can imagine that happening quite a bit. So this is a game, you know, where I actually think Brennan Johnson could do pretty well in. Then after that, again, it's Fulham at home, and as I said, we know how good Spurs have been at home. Then Bournemouth away, Chelsea at home, Southampton away. So I actually do think the long-term fixtures for Brennan Johnson and Spurs are really, really good, which is why I do like Brennan Johnson as an option. And as I said, guys, Brennan Johnson has been, you know, really, really good this season. He scored a lot of goals, and his underlying data is pretty decent as well. He's got 0.64 expected goal involvement per 90. So I am actually quite a decent fan of Brennan Johnson. I actually think he could be a really, really good Luis Diaz replacement. And then we do have Mitoma, and I do know that this isn't really the ideal week to be bringing in Mitoma, so you may want to hold off making this move for game week 11. But from game week 12 onwards, Brighton do have a fantastic fixture on, and I really do like Mitoma because we know he's going to start. He typically plays every game and gets 90 minutes, so he's a really, really good asset to have in my opinion, especially heading into that December period where there is that fixture congestion and, you know, the risk of being rotated. I don't think we're going to see that with someone like Mitoma. So with these games, you know, Bournemouth, Southampton at home, Fulham, Leicester, Palace, West Ham, Brentford, with these good games, knowing that Mitoma is a guaranteed starter, I like him a lot. I like him a lot, especially because on the eye test, Mitoma is really, really good, and he's another player, a bit like Anthony Gordon, always involved in the Brighton attacking play, a good creative player out on that left-hand side. I would say his goal threat and overall sort of goal involvement, right, is slightly lower than the rest of these options. I do think Bruno Fernandes, Anthony Gordon, and Brennan Johnson, all, like, their underlying data is better, and I feel like they sort of do look like getting more FPL returns than someone like Mitoma. However, these fixtures are just simply too good, right? They are simply too good, and I do believe the attacking returns will pick up for someone like Mitoma, and I feel like his underlying data will get better with these good fixtures. So that's why I do like Mitoma. I really do like Brighton as an attacking team, right? Under Hertzler, they really are good going forward, and they can hurt teams and they can score a lot of goals. So I do like the Brighton attack, and I do like Mitoma as an option. So yeah, for me, he just gives you that security. As I said, you know he's going to start. Even when João Pedro comes back from injury, for example, you know he's got that left-hand side sort of on lock, right? We know that that is Matoma's side, right? We know that he's going to play there every week. So yeah, I do like him as an option. And as I said, I think the fixture run is just so good, and I do believe the attacking returns will pick up for Mitoma. You know, so far this season, he's only got one goal. He's only got one goal and 3 assists, which isn't a lot. I would say slightly he's underperforming for his price. I think at 6.5 million, he should have a bit more returns, but I do think Brighton haven't had the easiest starts, right? They haven't had the easiest starts. They've actually had quite a lot of hard games. They've played, you know, the likes of Arsenal away from home. They've played the likes of, look, Arsenal, as you guys can see here, Manchester United, Nottingham Forest, who have a good defense. They played Chelsea, Spurs, Newcastle away. So yeah, they're not really the easiest games on paper, right? They're not the easiest games at all, and they've played Liverpool, of course, as their most recent fixture. So yeah, as I said, with these like really, really good games coming up, I do believe the goal contributions will increase for someone like Mitoma. And for that reason, I do believe he is definitely someone to consider buying as a replacement for Luis Diaz. But that is going to be it for today's video. So I really do hope you enjoyed. And if you did enjoy, make sure you do smash a big thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. And guys, thank you so much for watching. But that is it from me today, and I'll catch you in the next one. But until then, I'm out. Peace.